ready.
Yeah, go ahead. Just go ahead. Don't bother about the back of the Don't bother about people paying attention. Yeah. Go ahead.
We're going to move on to our spoken word opportunity. So, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name. Isaac is here, and he is going to share some of his poetry. So we'll just give everyone just a moment to sit down, and so we can give him our utmost respect. So, just one. There we go. I'm hearing it. It's getting a little quieter because I want to make sure that we can hear our spoken word. Can you help? Okay. Yeah, so the posters are over, and we are moving on with the program. So I can't, these are my close-up glasses. I can't see who's not that far back, but there we go. So if we can sit down and give our wonderful local artist, Isaac, our attention. I know that we're speaking really quietly, but still. I don't know if you've ever performed in front of people, but it's always nice when we are. All right. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, so without further ado, we have Isaac here, and I'm going to hand the mic over to him.
Hello, everyone. When I was a young boy, my mom used to tell me, son, words can never hurt you. Unlike sticks and stones that break bones, words can never harm you. And I believed her. So every time when kids hurled insults at me, I threw back silence. And I whispered my mama's words as if they were a charm. As tears rolled down my cheeks, like soldiers retreating from a battle they never chose to be part of. Because now as a grown-up I know, words can hurt you. Because unlike bones that heal, souls can take it forever. Well, I'm a storyteller, and so bear with me. Last week, I dropped off my sister at her new school, and as she walked, and as she rolled down in her wheelchair, you could tell she was excited to be there, for her face was full of courage. Her eyes were dancing with hope. You could tell the smile was that of excitement. But the other kids, they stared. They stared at her as if she was the Kit Mikai, the crying stone in Kisumu. They stared at her as if she had fallen from the sky. But not as a blessing, but a warning, a disguise. And I watched as my sister took it, the pain. And in that moment, I knew she wished she had wings, but all she had were wheels. And a broken heart, taking it a blow by blow. And that is why today, I choose to speak. For as a society, in our parliament, we usually say the eyes have it. But haven't we turned a blind eye to the oppression of those who cannot see? Haven't we turned a deaf ear to their pain, and a dumb mouth to what they are going through? Yet again and again we treat them differently because of their eyes, their ears, and their mouths. Aren't we the ones who are blind not to see that these people, they are gems? PWD. They say it stands for people with disabilities. I disagree. I say it stands for people with dignity. For I have seen what they take day in, day out. As we turn our heads when we cross the streets not to see them, when we pretend not to see, when we hide our uncomfortability behind that pretense and the humble silence, the eyes have it. But the eyes are failing to see. So let's see what needs fixing in this society so that we can build a society that is for us all, not just the able, but the willing, the dreaming, the surviving, the wishing, and all of us. If the eyes have it, then I'm hoping today you have seen. Oh well, I'm a storyteller. Back to my sister. On that brilliant day, on that bright day, she wore a bright smile, a rare smile, a cute smile. For it has been a while, it had been a while before she could smile, for her life had been as bitter as bile because of the puns, the jokes, and the laughter of other children as they watched. For in this society, it's no longer a matter of you reap what you sow. We have all seen what happens to those who limp, those who roll, and those who don't fit in the current society's mold, how they are heartbroken, behold. So if the eyes have it, then today I'm hoping you have seen it. Cassie Isaacs, have an amazing time. Thank you.
All right, and we'll just give a moment for, first of all, that was absolutely amazing, Isaac. We are so lucky to have you here with us to share, and what a beautiful contribution to the discussion that we've been having about youth with disabilities for the past few days, and we will continue to have. So thank you, thank you. So Maureen's about to set up, and then we will move forward with our program. Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Maureen Short, because courtesy of my husband, but my maiden name is Wanyonyi. Anyone know where the name Wanyonyi comes from? How many are with me from that part of the country? Yes, yes. So I am currently a professor of special education in North Carolina Central University in Durham, in the US. But I'm very, very, very happy to be here. I'm home. So asanteni sana. My co-presenter, Dr. Kellabell, was not able to join us today, but she is a professor in the speech and language pathology department, also at the same university. So to start us off, I'm going to be talking about integrating the use of technology or digital technologies in assisting students with learning disabilities. So if you do not mind, please take out your cell phone and scan that QR code to let us know, just using one word, how you are feeling right now. Just scan the QR code. Should I move out of the way? Okay, let's see where we are on our QR code. My technology is a little slow today. Okay. Very good. So we have hopeful, excited, inspired, nice, energized, I like that, optimistic, hopeful, content, empowered but tired, not bad, exhausted, free, content, awesome. So why do we have that? It's always good, and Rebecca and Robai have been doing these reflections and check-ins every day. We have those. What my takeaway is we should continue doing that in our own classrooms. As a professor of or a trainer of pre-service teachers, we want to model what our teachers are going to do in the schools. Please continue to check in. It doesn't take but a few seconds, a minute at most, to check in with our students at the start of every lesson, of every day. A little simple exercise that they can do. Our students don't have cell phones in the classrooms, but for those in college that are teaching, the pre-service teachers in college, you can still do that and make use of simple technologies such as in apps like Slido or Mentimeter to check in. So thank you for sharing with us how you're feeling right now. As you can see from most of the words that we are using to describe how we feel, most of us are happy, we are content. And I want to thank the young man who was here, because what he did was actually extend what we heard from the young lady at Kise yesterday. What did she say? What was her one word? Never give up. That's what she said, never give up. And the young man today said he was sharing with us about his sister, right? He said he's a storyteller, and indeed he is. So let us not give up, let us continue to be excited, and then use every opportunity we can to check in with our students and with each other. So let's get back to this. So I'm going to be talking about technology and how we can use the technology that we can use to support our learners in the classrooms. We're going to understand at the end of the session very quickly and briefly the importance of digital literacy for students with disabilities, the key assistive technologies that we can use in our classrooms, and then fostering independence, confidence, and confidence using technology. Our students with disabilities suffer from low self-esteem. When you have a student who's say 15 years old, but is reading on a third grade level, or is reading as a standard, at the level of a standard 3 student, in using Kenyan terminology, how do you think they feel? Very bad, isn't it? What is the likelihood of that child who is 15 years old, who should then be in Form 2, but is unable to read? Do you think they'll raise their hand in class to read, volunteer, or even answer questions? They will not, isn't it? They will not. So what can we do to support the students who are functioning at 3 or more grade levels below their peers? We want to make use of digital technologies that are available right now. We want to get caught up in the technology make use of technology that's easily available right now and apply it to special education. We do not want to be left behind. Right now, there's a lot of AI out there, right? We know of ChatGPT. We know of What else? What other AI do we know that we are familiar with? Yes? Gemini, right? We have a lot of technology out there that we are using, but how are we using it? We find that the digital divide that is upon us is due to limited access to internet and devices, for one. Another is that there's inadequate support for assistive technologies, and there's a lack of training on digital inclusion for our teachers. One thing that I was very proud of was when we visited the KISE Training Development Center. KISE representatives here today? That was awesome. We went around and saw what these incredible therapists and teachers are doing there for the students. The one thing that was saddening, though, was it's one training development center in the country. Do we have KISE in other parts of in other counties? No. But what they have is incredible. So what do we do when we don't have access? One way to do that is to partner with other institutions, partner with other organizations, so that we can continue to support our teachers and our teacher training facilities. We had a presenter earlier today who was talking about empowering girls, and we had Dr. Sister Rob. That was incredible work that they are doing. It was touching to see how much they are doing to support the girls in Kenya, in Eldoret. So one thing we can do is look at ways in which we can continue to partner to increase opportunities for our students with disabilities. But before we even get to that point, I wanted to highlight some of the free technology that's available right now. It's already free. Several of us right now have, how many of us have cell phones? Everybody, right? How many of us have a laptop? See what I mean? And these are technologies that are freely available right now on our laptops. So in terms of assistive technology, we have, for example, screen readers. We were talking about students who have low vision or visually impaired or have low vision. We can have screen readers such as JAWS and NVDA free to download that we can use to support those students as they work, so that they are able to access that same information. But how many of us are using that? We may have these students in the school, but we wait for someone who's trained in visual impairment to support the student when we have free technology available. Microsoft also has training that is free for anyone who can access, who has a laptop. So I want us to encourage you to make use of this freely available technology. We also have the speech to text and Google voice typing. Who would benefit from voice to text typing? The blind? Who else? Yes? Absolutely. Those with difficulty with reading, and also students with dysgraphia, right? Or who have difficulty with typing and writing. If they were able to use their voice to dictate in a computer, then their words would be translated or transcribed into text, and that would help them. Okay, so, and again, all this is free. As long as you have a laptop, this is free. So we're going to also look at a few other technologies that we can use to help with our students. So we have the Microsoft Immersive Reader. We talked earlier, another session, we talked about students who have dyslexia, who have difficulty reading, who just need a little more time when reading to comprehend the text that they are reading. What are some ways we can support those students? And that's what I'm going to be looking at briefly. And I will share this PowerPoint with you I'll share my information at the end of my session so that we can do that. So right now, if you could just take 1 minute to turn to your partner and discuss think about any digital tools that can support students with either dyslexia to help them with decoding a text, a student who has limited mobility or is struggling with writing because of their coordination, and then a student with autism who has trouble with social cues and transitions. Just real quickly, let's turn to each other and discuss what technologies can help us with that. Real quick. Turn to each other and think about to discuss what technologies can we use. Yes. Any ideas? Not yet. Oh, don't worry. We are not all done. So, dyslexia, this is a student who is struggling to read. When you look at the text, it's like it's jumping around. So what we use, something that can help them. Something that can read it for them. Yes! Speech to text. There you go. There you go. Can we think of some technologies that can help?
They revise.
Right? Or if it could be read, if something can be read to them. A, B, C, D. Awesome. Awesome. Anyone care to share? Anyone would like to share any one of the, you can pick any one, either if it's dyslexia or the student with writing or typing difficulties. Any? Yes.
Dyslexia.
Which one do you want to share?
Oh,
For dyslexia, what can they use?
Okay, so our group for dyslexia shared visual cues which may be laminated to support the grade level reading, and also text-to-speech as well.
Thank you very much. Anyone want to share about the student with autism or limited difficulty with writing?
So for the purple one about working with students with autism and the social cues, we talked about a digital timer. So we can either have it up on our smartboard, or we could even have it on their individual computers if they have one.
Thank you. And finally, we have about maybe 1 minute, one more group to share about the student with writing difficulties. Okay, due to time, I'm going to share with you. So some of the technology that we can use is that we can use the immersive readers for decoding support. We can use the speech to text for such as Google Voice for anyone with motor limitations, visual schedules, social stories, and apps for students with autism, right? Now I want us to take a look at one of the technologies in detail to help them. Like I said before, these are students who will also struggle with self-confidence. If you were here and listening to the young man, he told us about his sister who was taking all the insults from the fellow peers. So one such immersive reader that we can use, I asked you earlier who has a cell phone, is the Microsoft Lens. Microsoft Lens is a free app that you can download. And once you do that, you can then, as the picture shows, you can scan using the app, Microsoft Lens, you can scan a text and it will read to the student. The student is also able to control the speed at which the text is being read to them, and they can also select the voice. If a student is more comfortable hearing from a male, then they can select the voice of a male. If it's a female student more comfortable listening to a female voice, they can do the same. How easy is that to help support our students? So just something as simple as using that Microsoft Lens app, you can do that. And then finally, I'll leave you with this DFIT for teachers. DFIT is an app that can help us with developing IEP goals and in developing instructional activities for our students. And if you just Google DFIT, it'll come up. This is an example of what I did. You can get student-ready resources from DFIT, which again is free. I typed in, for example, the life cycle of a butterfly, and I wanted to use this for 5th grade of a standard 5 student. It developed and brought up the entire diagram of the life cycle. It also would give you access to adapted reading passages based on the content that you have entered, and includes key vocabulary words for the particular passage. But you know what was best of all? It also can develop the quizzes to help the students understand that content. We are in a bilingual and multilingual society right now. And do you know what was most exciting for me? All those are resources that are available. Was that I was able to select translate, and there are over 200 languages in there. And of course, I selected Swahili because we're in Kenya. And he translated that passage for me into Swahili. So if we have students, we were talking about, there was a session yesterday talking about students who are refugees. We have Somali in there. We have Sudanese. We have, you name it. And this is a free app that will help any teacher develop information to support students on different levels in their classroom. Is that not something that is worth considering? Yes. So I only have about 5 minutes, and I want to give us time to think about what we can share, what we have shared. Please, if nothing else, think about Microsoft Lens to help your students with the reading. You can scan a printed text, it will read back to the student. And second is the DFIT, to develop instructional materials for the students at any level, all the way to high school. You can get that information and get it formally and translate it for your students as well, okay? And I will be sharing these resources with you. My email is on the next page, but at this time, any comments and questions, please? So I leave this with you with Maya Angelou's quote: no matter what happens or how bad it seems today, it will be, life does go on, and it will be better tomorrow. Thank you all so much.
Thank you very much. Let us again have a round of applause to her for the wonderful presentation. So our next presenter, there is a question, maybe one because of time.
Thank you so much, Maureen. My question is, have you worked with Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development to share your knowledge? Because sometimes when these things are flowing from the top down, it's easier.
Institutions with anyone, faculty, teachers, anyone who's willing to connect. Here is my email address. Please send me an email. Let us connect. I am willing to do that. Yes. Send me an email. Uniambie tulikutana Naivasha ama ulikuwa umekaa kwa conference, and we will connect and see how to share ideas. Tafadhali. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So we want to welcome the next presenters on leadership and advocacy for inclusive partnership with the culturally, linguistically diverse communities. It will be a lecture presentation of 25 minutes. Let us put our hands together and welcome Rebecca, Jess, Pamela, and Robai. Good.
Jambo, everyone. We're really happy that you're here today to see our presentation. This project began when Rebecca and I were on faculty together, and it's been evolving for a while. I think so. Yep. So I'm going to ask each of you to introduce yourselves.
So I know you've seen me up here a lot, but my name is Rebecca Jez, and I'm an associate professor at the University of San Diego. And I was actually a classroom teacher in special education for 14 years as I was moving up into higher ed, which I've been in for about, almost 20 years actually now. So,
good morning, everybody. I'm Jambo. My name is Robai Werunga. I know most of you know the name, but a little bit about me. I'm currently an assistant professor of special education at the University of Massachusetts in Lowell. And similar to Rebecca, before going into higher ed, I was a special needs teacher for 15 years in the United States before moving to higher ed.
And I'm Pamela Redmond. I don't talk anymore about how long I've been teaching, but I spent a good 15 years in special education and then moved into higher ed simultaneously with teaching K-12. And I'm now chair of innovation and learning and leadership at Touro University, California. So we're going to pose to you the primary goal of why we're doing this research, which is that we believe that together as professional educators of Teachers for the Future, that we can work as agents of equity and inclusion by addressing in our teacher education programs, in our administrator preparation programs, the principles of DEI, inclusion, belonging, creating a culture that is robust in supporting all students to learn and be successful. So we want to pose an activity to you.
You know I'm the activity person, so I'm going to start out, and we're asking you to, I don't know if Nathurn's in here, but we were talking yesterday about the importance of contextualizing education, and that just because something works in one place doesn't mean that that same practice works in another. So we want you to turn and talk to your table and contextualize where you're coming from in three ways that your community, whether it's a teacher prep program, a non-government organization, a school, a district, higher education, or policymaker or whatever, how do you prepare educators and service providers to support youth with disabilities or with differing needs? So you can think about this with disabilities. You can think about this, as we were talking about with the last presentation, language, socioeconomic challenges, so this could be housing, nutrition, healthcare, or racial and ethnic disparities, which we see a lot of in the U.S. So we'll just give you a minute or so to just share some of the contextualization of your own community.
Do they have to share?
No, I think we'll have time. We just want them to talk. Yeah. But don't fall off.
Yeah, don't fall backwards. Yeah.
We move to the next scale while they're talking.
Wait, is that one's you.
I think we should do a shout out from your team about like what's the one day.
Yeah, just a little bit, a couple of words.
I can do it, or you can do it. All right, so we're just going to have you use your teacher voices, and each table just shout out one of your contextualizations. And so we'll start out with this table because they're all smiling at me, so that's how you get that. Oh, there we go.
Anybody want to give a shout out?
You're just starting. Yeah, once you're ready, we'll get over to you.
Okay, sounds good. All right, you guys have one? Well, I've got one. Do you want me?
We've used immersive opportunities to prepare pre-service teachers.
Thank you. Is there one here? Anybody else want to share an idea from your table? Brainstorming, okay. Anybody else have an idea they want to share? All right. They're still brainstorming.
Okay. All right, Bob. The next one's yours.
Oh, it is? Okay, so if we could ask you to pause your conversation and hold the thoughts in mind that you were discussing with your colleagues. We're going to move on because we're short on time. And please keep those ideas in mind as you listen to our work. So at this point, we wanted to share with you that we encountered a problem at our institution, Rebecca and I did it again, where we were quite upset when we would have a candidate who went through the whole program and then didn't succeed in student teaching. And because they had a disposition issue. And so we started investigating this problem. And we initially looked to the literature to see how others who came before us had described successful dispositions, particularly around these areas of DEI, inclusion, belonging. And we conducted a study. Do we have those statistics coming up next? Yeah. I'm going to turn it over to Rabai to talk about what we found.
So what we did initially is try and find out how, dispositions are being defined in literature. And we initially looked at journals and publications, a total of 75 of those. We looked at university handbooks in their teacher education programs and how they defined professional dispositions. We also looked at accreditation standards for which different universities are subscribed to see how they defined professional dispositions for teachers. Let's move to the next thing. And so the first step we did is with the site is look at keywords, and a total of about 104 journals were reviewed for keywords for professional dispositions to try and find out how is this being defined in literature. And after that, we aggregated those keywords and came up with 26 themes. And after the themes, we took the themes to codify those and came up with a few keywords that that came, well, there were several keywords that we came up with, but we ended up with 3 major themes, one of them being educator identity, cultural community. It's in the next page, behind one, the one. Yeah, you went too fast, sorry. So there were 3 themes: identity, praxis, and cultural community. And we used those themes to create our model for what we think would describe an ideal disposition, so that teachers should leave their programs with, the pre-service teachers, to be ready to serve a diverse community of students, especially in the United States context, where we have a very increasingly diverse student body, and as opposed to the teachers who teach them, which is predominantly white female teachers who are teaching them.
So we wanted to come up with a visual model for these categories that we came up with, but we also wanted to contextualize them in the lives of teachers. So we initially looked at Brofenbrenner's model and started playing with that, and we felt rather than concentric circles, we had overlapping circles of influence on teacher development. And we're not really sure this is exactly where we want to go, but this is where we are so far. And we really see that, you know, an educator's growth and becoming a proficient practitioner is embedded in both their own personal identity, what they bring to their initial teacher training and their classroom experiences, the art of becoming a teacher, the content matter, the pedagogy, those things, and that those two overlap greatly to really form an educator. But it's all situated in this external culture. Sorry, I'm talking with my hands. It all gets situated in this cultural community in which they belong. So we sorted the various indicators that we found in the literature and tried to put them in those 3 groups. And many cases we had to take similar terms and pull them together into one term that we're not sure is the right term yet. We're still working on that.
All right, so as Pam mentioned, we took all of the information. We have this humongous graph that analyzed each one of these data points, so the journals and the accreditation pieces. And we started to come up with our definitions for each one of the terms from the last slide. And so then we started really thinking, well, first of all, teacher education is a lot. We end up having to teach not only content, but practice and strategies and working with families and all of these different pieces. And so we wanted to be really mindful about the way that we encourage people to infuse them into their educator preparation program. And we wanted to think about that based on the social justice that we believed in, human rights education. And so we also wanted to make sure that it wasn't performative. One of the things that we were seeing when we were looking at a lot of the universities' listing of how they looked at dispositions was that it was defined as something that they could check off. They've taken a multicultural class, check. They have learned how to engage with parents, check. You know, but it wasn't, just because you've checked off a box doesn't mean that you've actually internalized those skills. And so a lot of the reason why this work has been even slower is because we're really trying to think about how we can keep this same framework from becoming performative. We want you to think about your learning community and the influence that you have on these internal conversations. You all are here. You invested your time and your money into being here with us today, and to many of you traveling to Lake Nyavasha from around the world. And, you know, how can you now take these same ideals and start to infuse those into your own practice? And so our belief is that if we are critically reflective, So we're thinking deeply about how we can improve as humans, as individuals, and as educators in the actions that we have. That will be one step in the right direction. Providing new experiences. So those of us who work with educators and educators who are working with our youth, our learners, and all of us as community members, we have to call ourselves to task about how we're creating experiences that are welcoming and so that everyone feels like they belong. And then also building up our background knowledge. So a lot of times, as a white female educator, I have to really think about what is it that I don't know? What are my blind spots? And what information do I need to learn in order to really make sure that all of my students or my learners or my colleagues feel like they belong? So that is connected to the socio-political consciousness.
So I just wanted to add something in the Kenyan context. So in the US, we are discussing these positions in terms of serving a diverse body of students, culturally and linguistically diverse students. But in the Kenyan context, especially with the theme of this conference, thinking about inclusive education and teacher candidates who are going into the field to work with students who are able differently. They might not be like the students that we visited in the schools because those are in separate schools. But what about a student with dyslexia? What about a student with a behavioral issue that is sitting in your class? What kind of biases are you coming in? And so as teacher educators, and we know we have a lot of them, a lot of you here who in higher education, how are you going to reconceptualize how you are working with your teacher candidates so that you can get them ready to work with those students who might not be the average student? And the key thing is you have your academically gifted student in that class, and you have your student maybe with, struggling with ADHD or an emotional behavior or just dyslexia, dysgraphia. How are you going to be able to prepare them so that they're able to meet the needs of those students? Because we know that most teachers usually teach to the average student. And so how can we at teacher preparation programs prepare these teachers so that they are ready to serve those students? Okay, so yeah. So thinking about how your communities, actually my kind of shred was just for about the higher education and teacher preparation, but overall, in working with the students with disabilities or generally with just students, how might your learning community, whatever that is for you, it could be a school, it could be a school district, it could be higher education, how, and you do have, we have 2 minutes for that? I do have 2 minutes.
No, we're done.
Oh, okay.
So maybe we skip this and we go to the...
Yeah. So, think about that in your learning communities, what we just said, how can you amplify the spirit of diversity and community for the students that you work with or whatever your community, on teacher preparation, how can you prepare them?
So hopefully that builds on what you started at the beginning of our session, that you have some more nuggets that you're able to bring back to your site. We just wanted to tell you that this is the first part of a more iterative process. We've done the research, we've collected the identifiers, we're beginning to publish an article on what they are. Our next stage that we want to do is we want to make sure that we have chosen the right indicators. So we need your perspective to help us understand what this looks like in your context and whether we're using the right language that represents you and your culture and the development of your teachers. So we're moving to a Delphi process, and we have a website, teachingdispositions.com, you can go to read more about our multi-stage project. There's a QR code here. If you scan it, you'll be able to go to a Google form and participate as a Delphi participant, and we'd love to hear from you and have your perspective as part of our research.
And I'm not sure if it being casted on the screen allows the QR code to stay the same. So if it's different, then please come to us and we'll make sure to get you on there if it doesn't work with your phone. Okay? And so then we're at the thank you. And we finish exactly at 11:20. So I'm very excited about that. But thank you so much for your time and listening to another side part of what Rabbi and I and Pam are doing. Thank you.
Very much for the wonderful presentation. There is a question, maybe one.
Hello, everyone. I have one question to the great presenters who have just done so now. And you have talked about university students who perhaps are having disabilities in one way or another, whereby you find that this student has to raise the bar, at least do some extra effort compared to another student who totally has no disability. My question is, which approach would you maybe recommend? Is it to raise the bar, to help the student raise the bar and work that extra mile than the average student, or perhaps make compelling lecturers to meet the needs of these students? You got the question?
That's a good question. So we're taking, so a lot of the times we're talking about K-12, right? Kindergarten to high school, but the same thing applies at the college, and so it's really actually thinking about how college professors can adapt accommodations, the same things that we're talking about, thinking the approach, we call it the US Universal Design for Learning approach, and I did actually a training with the college in Egerton in 2023 with the professors, Universal Design for Learning, where you provide for all these learners in the classroom. So it's a good question that even in higher ed we should be looking at, on how we can provide accommodations and supports for the different learners who learn differently, and what kinds of accommodations can be provided for them so that they can access the learning and demonstrate that they have learned. So it's a good conversation to be had, and I appreciate your question.
Thank you very much. This is not a question, but a request. You've touched on certain issues which have, on certain areas which have been really challenging. My name is Peter. I teach at the university. I teach Department of Special Needs. And the areas that you've touched are really areas which have caused challenges in the teaching in an inclusive environment. My request is that can I have a further discussion on this behind the tent? Thank you.
And if I could say something else too. I think there's an underlying belief that we have that dispositions can be taught if we create the right learning environment for our candidates. And so what do those experiences need to look like as the next stage beyond figuring out if we have the right terminology? It's like, what tools do we need to be able to create the right environment that we can nurture our candidates in a way that they become the best possible professionals in the classroom with the right dispositions to support every student to be successful.
Sorry, one more question here. Then we'll run.
Yeah, hi. My question actually goes to Dr. Werunga, and it's about inclusion in the Kenyan context. We talk about diversity, but in the Kenyan context, we also have classism. And I wonder how that would be addressed in the dispositions that you're looking at.
Oh, no, okay.
Yeah, just in relation to what Professor has asked, still on inclusion and the training of teachers. We realize those when you are training teachers to teach average students is different to those who are going to teach special students. So how do you package these teachers who are going to teach the inclusive education? Yeah.
Actually, that's a good question, and maybe not too many people know, but the first time I came to Kenya, 2023, it was for that purpose. So I am working with Egerton University to develop courses that will be taken by all teacher candidates and to equip them with at least the basic tools to support students with special needs. Because one of the things that I did in 2023 is surveyed secondary school teachers on their perspectives and their, how they think that they're well prepared to serve with students with special needs in the inclusive environment. And the results were actually telling. I'm talking about that in my presentation tomorrow. Yeah, and they are not prepared, bottom line, and they need help. That's what they said. So, did I answer your question? So yeah, classism, yeah, that's a big thing. I think it is something that we can talk about later and maybe a work that we can start here, right? Yeah. Classism, yeah. Yes, it is to India and so many other. So yeah, our research was really, based in the US, but yeah, when we add contexts like Kenya and many other countries, the issue for classism comes in, and even urban versus rural also is a big thing. You find that the farther away you get from Nairobi, the farther the challenges become, so it is a conversation to be had, and maybe something we can think about in our DEFA, yeah?
The third stage of our study is we want to have partner schools work with us to try out what we've created and to help us co-develop resources for people. So if you're interested in partnering with us, we would love to talk with you and have you be part of this initial part of making sure we have the right terms, make sure we have the right categories, and then when we do, we want to create some instruments that you could pilot with your candidates in your situation. So please let Rabai or Rebecca or I know if you're interested in that. If you go to teachingdispositions.com, there's also a form there that you can fill out that we'll all get an email. So if you don't connect with us, please feel free to do that.
Thank you. Let us a round of applause to them for the powerful presentation. I want to welcome the next group of presenters. It is Bush Mechanics. They are doing something on how Bahamian teacher educate students with disabilities without a formal inclusion in the model. It is a lecture presentation. It will take 25 minutes. It's being presented by Philandra Smith and Kaboy and Jelle Robinson. You are highly welcome. Good. You are highly welcome. You are Yes, good. Yeah, you can able to enter that. Good. You have 25 minutes. Okay. Yes, good.
All right, good morning, everybody. First of all, thank you all so much for coming to our presentation. I am Dr. Philandra Smith, and this is my beautiful colleague and friend, Dr. Julia Robinson. And our presentation this morning is entitled Bush Mechanics, How Bahamian Teachers Educate Students with Disabilities Without a Formal Inclusion Model. And the first word here, Bush Mechanics, Bush is intentionally crossed through because, as you will see in our presentation, we were wrestling with the title alongside our theoretical framework, which is decolonial theories. So in the Bahamas, I'm from the Bahamas, we use the term bush mechanics to describe people who are mechanics. They work on cars, but they may not be formally trained. So they did not go to school for auto mechanics or anything like that, but yet they are able to fix cars and do it really well. And they provide it at a much cheaper cost, so we will use the term bush mechanics to describe them. Now, in the decolonial framework, we wrestled with, do we want to use the term bush mechanics to describe our teachers who are using inclusive methods in schools where inclusive education might not be formally organized and recognized, or do we just want to refer to them as mechanics? So I just wanted to explain why this strike through is there in the word bush mechanics.
And so a little about us. Dr. Smith is from the University of Pittsburgh. She is an assistant professor of special education and critical disability studies in the Department of Teaching, Learning, and Leading. She has been a great colleague and even mentor to me, and I'm grateful to be sharing this stage with her. My name is Julia Robinson. I am at a university also in Pittsburgh, not far from the University of Pittsburgh. I'm at Duquesne, and I'm a clinical assistant professor of special education. Both of our backgrounds are in K-12 schools as teachers, and I was a middle school principal, and we bring that knowledge, that context, and those questions with us as we approach this research.
So a little background on the context. This research was done in the Bahamas, the country that I'm from. The Bahamas is an archipelago of islands. We consist of 700 islands, rocks, and keys. About 17 of our islands are inhabited and have formal school systems on them. And that's going to be important for the context as we talk about inclusive and special education, because it means that our government does not get to provide education in one location. Instead, when we think about education, we have to think about how are we supplying teachers and services to each one of these islands where we have schools. Some of these islands don't have fully developed airports, so we're transporting in between islands by boats, by planes. Travel from Grand Bahama to Florida is much faster than you can get from Grand Bahama to one of our islands in the south. So what I'm saying to you is it is faster for some islands to get to a different country than it is to get to other parts of our country. So our research project, the objective of our project was just to examine the strategies that public teachers in the Bahamas use to educate a wide range of learners in the absence of a formal inclusive education model. And our research is guided by two questions. How do Bahamian teachers support students with diverse academic and behavioral needs? And how does the absence of a formal inclusive education model influence teachers' pedagogical approaches and practices? So we want to give you insight firstly into the framework and the setting for this study. So the framework for this study, we're working with decoloniality, and that is important to this study because we really wanted to delink this mysticism around everything in the global north is best. Sometimes what we're doing in the global south, there is so much folks in the global north can learn from that, and we wanted to push back against the narrative that things in the global south are all associated with deficit, as well as everything in the global north is the strategies that we should be applying to our context. It's not perfection, Global North is not perfection, Global South is not perfection, but there are things that our teachers are doing that need to be elevated and highlighted and supported. As I said, the setting of this study was in the Bahamas. We focused on several of our islands. We call them family islands, as well as the capital, Nassau. So I'm showing you this map again, and where you see the little red pins are where we had participants who we interviewed. So several of our islands are included in this study.
We had 10 participants in this study. 8 of them were female, 2 male. We had 3 in the junior school, so in the Bahamas that means grades 7 through 9, and the majority, 7 of them, were from primary schools. You can see here, I won't run through this whole slide, but you can see our pseudonyms, the gender of our participants, how long they've been teaching, and just for reference, on average, our participants had been teaching for 10 years. So this is an experienced group of educators. And we covered, I believe, 6 different islands as part of the Bahamas here. I also want to mention our interviews. So some of these were conducted by Dr. Smith in person, some were via Zoom, and that was really dependent on a couple of factors. One, what was the location of the participants and the interviewer, and then also the preference of the interviewee. How do you feel most comfortable engaging with us, talking with us about your practice? And so we wanted to make sure that we chose the format that was good for them. We will talk about themes that we have discovered in our work. To do that, we had a 2-step simple coding process and looked for emergent themes that we will discuss later throughout this presentation. And we uncovered 2 themes to address both of our research questions here. So when we're thinking about how Bahamian teachers support diverse needs in the classroom, we noticed that teachers really came forth as nurturers, as mentors, as emotional anchors. We'll discuss more what that looks like, what that feels like. Maybe that resonates with you already, with some of your experiences as educators or even as learners. We also noticed that in their adaptations or methods for differentiation, they were very student-centered and culturally responsive. And we'll give you some concrete examples of what that will look like. When we're thinking about how the absence of a formal inclusive model influenced practice, there were 2 other themes that came up. This idea that they differentiated for diversity and not deficit. So where did our practitioners locate deficit? How did that change how they approached their students? And we also noticed that relational data was a driver for the ways they showed up for their students and as practitioners.
So for our first theme, teachers as nurturers, mentors, and emotional anchors, we saw that our teachers in the Bahamas really took on this quasi-parental role. They almost showed up for their students as third parents. So I pulled a quote from Miss L, this is a pseudonym, who is a 6th grade teacher, and she's been teaching for 14 years. So she said, in reflecting on her interaction with one of the students that she framed as a student who has significant behavioral challenges, she said his mommy passed away when he was, I think, maybe at childbirth or really young. A lot of teachers can be rough, referring to the teachers can be difficult with the student in their interaction. She said, and I guess because he's in my room and I give him that motherly feeling, that's why he just does what I say. So whereas this student that she's talking about has been a challenge in other classroom spaces, in her space, she said the student is obedient, he listens. In fact, she uses him as a leader in the classroom, but she shows up as a mother for him, recognizing that his mother passed away at a young age. Then another thing that really came up in all of our interviews is that the teachers, when they are thinking about difficult behaviors, they're showing up in counselor roles. So I'm going to share this quote from Mr. B, who is a junior high teacher, and he's been teaching for 21 years. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but he said, but if you're really going to teach a child, you have to deal with the whole person, which is a lot of work, but you have to deal with the whole person, spirit and body. And that's where I think education has failed. And so if you speak to any of the teachers in the government system, the teacher goes beyond in terms of counseling, in terms of really speaking into the child and giving life to them. That takes precedence over their academics. So in addition to their role as teaching academics, these teachers take on significant community activist roles as both quasi-parents for their students who they may recognize a parent is missing or not able to show up fully, as well as counselors for their children, recognizing that before this child can learn academically, they have to cater to the soul, the spirit, the mind of that student, and they take part in a lot of counseling. Mr. B goes on to say, not that academics is not important, but you realize you can't sit down, or how can you really just teach to the board all day if you never connect with the student? That student will begin to make progress when you connect with them on a personal level. Another theme or sub-theme that came out was this idea of school as safe spaces. So I will just highlight Ms. Nikwa for this one. And Ms. Nikwa talked about how it was important for her when she thinks about including students who have behavioral as well as learning challenges. She's saying that in order for learning to happen, her classroom must be a safe space. So this is how she's thinking about including her students. Then we have teachers who are going beyond the content, and we're highlighting something that Ms. Abby said. And Ms. Abby highlights this approach or this practice that she uses in her classroom, and she says, bloom. They do that every day. So there are two things that they do. It's a mantra, a scripture, and bloom. B is be on your best behavior. L is learn to love and let go. O is only your best is good enough. O is on time, on task. And M, make it count. And then they have a mantra. I am focused on my goals. I will achieve them. I'm going to do my best. And she has a scripture that all of her students say as well. So when they're thinking about inclusive education, they are including students or thinking about their students who may have behavioral and academic challenges. Their role is to show up as a nurturer, a mentor, and an emotional anchor. And that's significant because in the Bahamas, we don't have systems where we label students to say, you have emotional behavioral disorders, or you have dyslexia, or you have dyscalculia, or something like that. So they recognize the challenge, and they're responding to it innovatively using their own strategies.
I don't know about you, but bloom was something that really stood out for me. I have started to say a lot of that myself. It's a great mantra, something that I think is a really powerful reminder for students and for us. And so this is you too. Do you want to talk about this one?
So when the teachers are engaging in adaptations, their adaptations looked like culturally responsive strategies for engaging students in activities in the classroom, as well as how they think about responding to their students' behavior. So Mr. B, for example, in thinking about and responding to a question to how do you handle students who are showing difficult behaviors in your classroom, Mr. B talks about exercising patience and expect a child who has been traumatized for most of their life to suddenly line up and just behave. So his strategy looks like patience, but his strategy comes out of knowing his students' background and having that relationship with the community. With Aubrey, on the other hand, she's a primary school teacher, and she's talking about how she responds to the boys in her classroom, and it's very specific to her classroom. So these might not be things textbooks will tell us to do, but out of the knowledge of their students, they are able to provide student-centered strategies. And then in terms of managing engagement, this teacher talked about how her students were really struggling with multiplication tables. So in the Bahamas, we are a culture that we enjoy song and dance. So she embedded some singing and dancing into their recitation of their multiplication tables, and she talked about a game she created around the song, Who Let the Dogs Out? I don't know if you know that song. But she created a game around that, and she said the students were incredibly engaged. They would go home and encourage each other to learn the multiplication tables and come back. So what we see is, through the knowledge of their students, they are providing adaptations and strategies.
So as we mentioned at the start, we set out to learn about the strategies and methods teachers applied to meet the needs of their students. And you've heard a bit about what and how Bahamian practitioners we spoke to accomplish that. And methods are absolutely important, but of course, perhaps what was equally as salient to us as we reviewed interview transcripts is what we did not hear from practitioners. Yes, teachers spoke about diverse academic, behavioral, and personal characteristics of their students. They talked about the effect of those characteristics on teaching and learning. They described various levels of reading and writing abilities, maybe issues related to motivation and effort. They even talked about challenges that students might experience with sustaining attention. But while doing so, all except for one participant, what we did not hear was that the challenge or the problem was innate to the child. We did not hear teachers say, he won't be able to, or she's a problem, or they're at risk. Instead, they spoke about contributing factors that were external to the student, such as extenuating family circumstances. They talked about curriculum and assessment schedules that were dictated by administrators. They talked about resource disparities that they have sometimes experienced between public and private schools, or the need for more specialized supports. And many expressed applying differentiation strategies based on both the knowledge of context, right, around their student and place, and their knowledge of student readiness. And this theme of differentiating for diversity and not deficit materialized as both a culture of high expectations and also as access as a core lesson design principle. We hear from Ms. Adderley and Ms. Abby here, and they both communicate that while the challenges students face are real, they are not insurmountable. Ms. Adderley says to her students who are in junior high, even though you are in this class, and she does have the students who need the most support, you don't have to act or behave that way, you understand? I have students who have been in the bottom who have passed their junior certificate, which is a high school graduation requirement, with C's. So I try to give them something else. I would definitely say the support from even me as a teacher, trying to be more creative in terms of catering to them. Ms. Abby echoes this idea. Not only is she holding her students to high expectations, but both of these individuals express holding themselves to high expectations as well. All of the students have a different way of learning, so if I'm creating a lesson plan, I'm focusing on their way of learning. I don't want a student to think that he's incapable of doing anything because he struggles with certain things. And that was especially powerful for me when reviewing this data and in our conversations, something we wanted to highlight and bring forth to you today. What we saw is that in the absence of labels, our practitioners seemed to be more inclined to innovate. There was not necessarily a roadmap. There's not a list of specially designed instruction that tells you to try these 5 things and then you're done, right? You have to figure it out. And we see this here from Ms. D. She's been teaching for 9 years. And this she described as kind of her everyday when approaching lesson planning. There's music, there's visuals, there's the hands-on. Because like I say, everybody isn't going to listen to what I'm saying and get it. Sometimes they may look at it in the words and it still wouldn't resonate. But if they can see it in a video or something that's colorful, or like an animation, or even putting it together as a puzzle, or working on something as a group, then they usually get it that way. So we see that there are multiple ways that information and content is presented, and there are also multiple ways that students are provided access to engage. For sake of time, I'm going to go to this next one here. This was also a really powerful theme that came through, this idea that relational data was a driver of intervention and classification. academic and behavioral challenges we saw often led participants to become more curious about their students. Rather than kind of saying, like, I can't figure it out, or there's this issue that's insurmountable, they started to ask questions about their young people. And as a result, there was this noteworthy depth of knowledge regarding students' homes, their communities, their ways of being. And we refer to this as relational data. Data gathered as, or by way of human-to-human connection. You've likely heard the saying, we measure what we value. And in educational settings, that can often look like big data, standardized tests, benchmarks, these things that are kind of external, and those are valuable pieces of data, absolutely. What we are reminded of and encouraged when we read these transcripts is that data can be useful and purposeful, but we run the risk of dismissing the humanity of our students and our young people if we do not also prioritize the contextualization of test scores within lived experiences. We need all of it. We need to know what your reading level is, absolutely. We also need to know what's home like for you. What are you interested in? What lights you up and brings you joy? And we see this come through in these two quotes. I'll read just one here. This is from Miss Ray. She has really young students, grades 1 and 2. She has a lot of years of experience, though, teaching. And she talks about this first grader. She has a multi-grade classroom, and when he first got to her, he was a screamer, a crier. He didn't want to do anything at all, not even sit down, not even talk in public. And now he's doing that. I let him have his free reign the first day, and I told him, after day 1, you can't do this anymore. You're going to need some structure and all of that. And after finding out more about the child and understanding the home situation, I understand why he is the way he is. And so for him, he has a routine, and I have to keep him close to me. So we see kind of all of our themes coming together. This nurturer, but also this culture of high expectations, and this idea that I got to know you, and that's going to help me serve you best. And so we have a few implications that we would like to chat about.
So we're just going to share 2 implications. So the first one, as professors who are working in the U.S., we train teachers right now. And we know that in the U.S. education system, there is an emphasis on statistical data. What are the test scores? What are the teachers doing? And those are the things that are being measured. And oftentimes, as I said, folks in the global south, particularly in my country, we can prioritize what's happening in the U.S., but we see that our Bahamian teachers are doing a phenomenal job. So one implication of this work, and what we see coming from these teachers that we interviewed, was that there's a need to resist the urge for all of us in the global south of positioning U.S. education systems as the exemplar, and we need to really value our cultural knowledge about our context. The Bahamas made up of small islands, and that small island context make us community people. And this is why our teachers are engaged in their community, and they know the setting, the environment, they're learning about their students' homes, and this relational data is what they're using to inform how do we innovate, how do we adapt, what do we adapt for. So it's not just adapting because the student cannot read, they do that, but they adapt for the fact that Johnny doesn't have a mom, Johnny doesn't have a dad, Johnny's home lacks structure. And then I think there is something to think about here as we elevate this context from the global south around resilience in teacher education. We had 10 teachers averaging about 10.5 years each. And these teachers, in the midst of talking about scarcity of resources, they are transporting things from one island to another so that their students can have what they need. They are being sustained in the field with low pay. They're not able to get all of what they need from their government, but they are being sustained. So what are those factors that we could think about, even as folks in the global north, when we think about resiliency in teacher education?
And finally, we wanted to lift up this idea that in the Bahamas, and hopefully elsewhere, I'm speaking from my experience as a teacher in the United States, I think some of this has been lost. Not because of teachers, but perhaps maybe society's perception of the work that we do and the value that it does bring. But we see that our practitioners view teaching as a professional, personal and social responsibility. Yes, I have a job to do. It is my responsibility to educate the 18 students in my first grade classroom, absolutely. But also, these individuals, these students and their families are my neighbors. And so I care about what happens next for them. I care about whether they've experienced loss, or I want to celebrate when something beautiful has happened in their lives. And you see that come through in their work. They also see it as a larger responsibility to their country and their communities. A couple of them talked about even looking at students as young as 6 and 7 year olds. 6 and 7 year old, they're looking at them as kind of little citizens, is how they describe them. They said uncoachable kids become uncoachable adults, right? These are conversations that we heard, and so they're thinking about the long game, the trajectory for these young people. And so teaching carried a lot of weight, a lot of pride, and a responsibility that was layered and complex. And I think, my hunch, we're going to look into this a little further, I'm thinking that lends to the resilience we see in these teachers. We appreciate so much your time, your attention. We would love to continue this conversation further with you, so please catch us on the way out, or you can jot down our email addresses if this is work that interests you or that you would like to collaborate on. We would love to communicate further. Thank you so much for your time.
If there is anybody with any question?
Thank you so much. That was a wonderful presentation. My question is there any success story that comes to mind that maybe a teacher shared with you that you can tell us about? Maybe there was a child who couldn't do something or the other, and now because of this kind of approach they were, so that we can see about the impact to the children. And I really like the fact that they're not labeled. I don't know, well, to the exceptional children, we here are calling them that, but there they don't.
Maybe I can take another, the last one, then they can. If there is any other person? None.
So one that really stood out to Dr. Robinson and I was a student that the teacher referred to as Johnny. That's not their name, but Johnny had, if Johnny was in a different educational context, we are almost sure Johnny would have been labeled with emotional and behavioral disorders. But in this context, the teacher is saying they recognize Johnny's home environment is just not great. Johnny lost their mother, father is not present in their lives and lives in a home with an aunt who's also caring for a lot of children, so Johnny doesn't get a lot of attention. And the teacher has really situated the challenges as in the environment of Johnny and not internal to Johnny. What we have seen based on the US context is sometimes when teachers situate the problem as innate to the child, they are less inclined to innovate in terms of how can I have an impact and how can I make a difference. If there is not some specially designed instruction that's provided for me, there's nothing I can do. But when they locate the challenge external to the child, we saw this teacher saying, okay, there is a lack of structure at home. There may be a difficulty providing love and affection to this child. So this teacher started to provide that motherly influence, as she called it, caring for Johnny, asking questions about his day, in addition to spending time with him on her lunch breaks to do intervention work with Johnny on her own. And she saw progress in Johnny. She said his grade point average increased. It wasn't leaps and bounds, but he went from not being able to write his name to being able to do that, to recognize letters, to sound things out. And she also said, as she feels like it could be a result of the care that she's giving him, that his behavior in her class is so much different than in the other classes. So in the other classes, he might still be wilding out a little bit, but in her class, he's well behaved, he's responsive, he's on task, he's doing what he's supposed to be doing. But the intervention there was not necessarily some specially designed instruction. It was, what is going on in Johnny's home environment and how can I respond to that, in addition to bringing the interventions that she recognized that he needed. Any other questions? Yes.
Hi, I loved your presentation, and some things that resonated with me are what you talked about, labels, and I was just very impressed to hear what you talked about, innovation vis-a-vis non-labeling of students. And so my question for you is that I saw you had like that beautiful map and you had the red dots. Do you think that what was it about the people who responded to your invitation to the research? Because I noticed they were concentrated in like a close geographical area and closer to the United States. So just curious.
Good.
So I don't think it's necessary. I don't think proximity to the U.S. is what's happening here. We had lots of responses, and what we did was, when I'm asking people to do work like this, I incentivize the research. So participants were offered an Amazon gift card for their willingness to participate. So we had lots of participants, but what we had to do is we randomized it to select from what we had. And we said we would do half of the interviews from the capital island, where most of our population is, and then the other half from other islands. And honestly, I think some random selection, we just got the upper half of the country. We had a person that wanted to participate from San Salvador over there. However, our schedules were not able to align, so we just weren't able to do it. But we're not a part of the U.S., so I don't think the proximity necessarily could have that kind of impact to say they're going to participate more for some reason. Because all of the interviews that were not in New Providence, they all happened on Zoom, so the incentive wasn't any different. Yeah. Thank you.
Appreciate our two presenters. Thank you very much. A round of applause to them. Wonderful. So I let bring now on board the last team of the presenters. The topic is on bridging the diversity and disability through children's literature. It will take 25 minutes. Tilashored Shafa, you are highly welcome. Let us give her a round of applause. Good. Wow. We have a technician who can help you. I think I can invite him. Baba. so that you can, it's okay.
It's okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's close, well, it's 12:06 right now. My name's Dr. LaShore Schaefer, and I am an associate professor at the University of Michigan in Dearborn. I teach early childhood and early childhood special education and special education courses to our pre-service professionals going into the field of teacher education that may not be specifically special education. Today, I'm going to talk about bringing in diversity and disability through children's literature as a means of increasing belonging, equity, and social justice. So through my investigation of really looking at one of the ways that we represent disability is through children's literature. And from the research that I've done, there is a real gap across the representation of individuals globally in disability literature. Globally, the research that I've found is that there is approximately 15% of people overall that live with a disability, and from that, the representation is really significantly lacking. So when we think about the real-world demographics that are out there and really thinking about how children are accessing information regarding the world that's around them, they're doing it through books, but those books may not align appropriately with what is currently happening across the world. So from that, there's a disparity that children are receiving when they are receiving information regarding others with disability through the representation of books that they are accessing or may not be accessing in their environments. So when we think about young children, we think about books, we think about the world. One of the ways that they access the world, if not through books, they may be reading books online, and so that literary representation is not there. We want to make sure that how we are shaping children and the knowledge that they're receiving through that information and through those books have that representation not just of diverse groups, but including that diversity should be disability as well across the world. So when we think about the books, are they presenting a positive representation? Are we looking at the self-esteem that those books are possibly providing for children? And is it also building identity for the children that are looking at that? So when we know that there's a lack of representation of that, that leads to that feeling of invisibility. And many times in the classroom, that leads to a lack of a sense of belonging in that classroom environment as well. And so when we are thinking about books, we want to make sure that there are accurate portrayals of both social justice and equity for individuals with disabilities. In the United States and of itself, the statistics about publications that are out there, there is a center called the Cooperative Children's Book Center, and in 2003, they found that there was only 7% of books that are published in the United States that represent those. When I looked at for international books, and I'll show this in a couple of slides later, there were only 4,000 books that have been published internationally regarding children with disabilities. And so if we think about the thousands and thousands of books that are published, the lack of representation for not only children with disabilities, but also individuals of color with disabilities as well, that representation decreases very dramatically for our students. When identifying with individuals with disabilities and really thinking about how they felt about that representation, around 45% of them felt that they weren't represented in books as a child. And so not having that representation in and of itself made them feel that they weren't part of that community, that society within their classroom. There are 1 in 3 people who are individuals with disabilities actually read books about their individual disability and of themselves. And so not even being able to see themselves in the book, reading a book throughout their lives was not something that was prevalent during their time of growing up. And then 1 in 6, about 17% of individuals with disability said that they would stop reading a book because of the negative portrayal of a disability itself. And so if my lived experience of having a disability is not being portrayed accurately, then not only do I not want to continue to read those books, but then I'm not also seeking other books to read that have other characters or representation of disability, because I don't feel that there's an accurate portrayal in there. And so when we think about the characteristics that classrooms bring, we want to make sure that when educators are creating environments for young children, we talk about creating inclusive environments. Are we thinking about, our own personal perceptions of disability as well? So do I see and value not only race, culture, one's ability, and really thinking about how I can support forming positive identities for the children that I'm working with? Am I willing to promote and develop that social emotional competence of the children in my classroom? Am I aware of color awareness? We know there's colorism that's out there. There's ableism that's out there regarding disability as well. Am I responsive to that? And am I creating a community of individuals that are willing to advocate for individuals with disabilities? And so really planting that seed of social justice for the children that we're working with. Also, really thinking about how we are not just having the books in the classroom, but are we applying them to instruction as well? So how am I looking within these texts and really thinking about my classroom instruction, really thinking about my activities in order for students to be reflective of what they see within the pages of the stories that are being represented, and is it reflective of their identities, of their stories as well? And so having conversations with students beyond just reading a story and just leaving it on the bookshelf, but really get them to think about their own experiences. They may not have a disability, but maybe someone in their family has a disability as well. And so having those open conversations with students is very important. Creating those opportunities for collaborative learning for kids, and really thinking about what are those different modalities of learning that we are integrating in the classroom in order for students to be able to, again, accept and reflect the acquisition of skills, and knowing that there's a variation in all of us in our learning and how quickly we learn something, or how we go about learning that information. So that selection of book, the materials, whether it's toys, manipulatives, technology, whatever that is that reflecting the diversity and the race and the disability, and is it being implemented and integrated in one's curriculum and their planning and implementation? So focusing on books themselves, one of the things that we know builds identity is having that ability to have self-awareness, self-concept, and self-control. And so as an instructor, being able to focus in on these 4 areas of self is really important. And so thinking about how one thinks about themselves. And so that self-awareness is looking at, how a child views himself as separate from other people within the context of their environment, looking at how that is developing over their lifespan, how it's that realization that they can make things happen, not only also for themselves when they're self-aware, but for others as well. And so in order for them to have that self-concept, kids have to have that knowledge, right, about themselves. What do I know about myself as an individual? What do I know about the disability that I have? How am I being accepted in the spaces that I'm in order for me to be a contributor to that space? And so thinking about this self-concept and social development, it's in congruence with one's cognitive development as well. And so making sure, if we're thinking about how we're reaching our learners, are we taking into the context of not only their knowledge development, but their social emotional development as well? The next area of self that we talk about is some self-control. Many people are talking about behavior, right, and how that shows up in kids' ability to be able to be successful in different environments. And so being able to think about oneself and am I able to control my impulses with support? Do I tolerate frustration? Am I persistent? Really thinking about those, intentional basis of behavior and how that shows up in the classroom. Where is it originating from? And so the previous speakers talked about environment, right? A lot of things that happen in kids' environment that's outside of school that shows up in the classroom, and that's something that we have to take in context when we're looking at what's impacting them. When we are creating environments that are developed through imaginative play for kids, giving them opportunities to co-construct in their learning in their environments, that helps in that development as well. And the next self is self-esteem, of course, and really thinking about how a child evaluates themselves in comparison to others, how they're learning compared to their peers. A lot of kids are very judgmental of themselves and really understand where they are at in comparison to their peers. And that impacts how they engage in the environment as well when they're thinking about themselves in relation to their peers. And so that self-worth that comes into place is really thinking about what's my value. Not only in this classroom, how am I valued at home? How am I valued in school? How am I valued in community? And when one has a disability, this idea of self-worth is really something that comes up a lot. Am I seen as a significant, important part of the communities that I'm in? So when we are thinking about literature specifically, one of the things that I have looked at is different ways to select children's literature that has that diverse representation of children with disabilities. And so the next couple of bullet points looked at when you're reviewing any text is looking at the positive identity is being mirrored within the context of the books that you're selecting. So making sure that not only does it has those literary elements that you're looking at, plot, setting, character, theme, tone, and style, but also making sure that there's high quality illustrations that are there. The characters are actually human. A lot of books that represent disability have animals in them or figures that are blobs or things like that, but actual humans that are being represented that are multicultural and again across the global community. Are the books balanced? Again, that accurate portrayal of disability in the storyline and the illustrations, making sure that the characters have a strong sense of self, because when one sees that in the characters in the books that they read, they can envision that for themselves. They can think about how to build that strong sense of self for themselves and really thinking about how I can move forward to be successful. So having that positive disposition, books that are relatable, books that are believable. And so if it's something that is completely out of stretch for the individuals, then they may not see that something as being achievable. Make sure books are age appropriate, of course, with both social and cultural relevant content that is something that can be understood, and is it also have a context that's also related to social justice for students as well. Thinking about the experiences and the settings, make sure they're varied, thinking about different aspects of life, depending on the age range that you are working with, that's something that should be taken into consideration. Making sure vocabulary is age appropriate, first person language, of course, making sure that we're thinking about, again, is it inclusive, what messages are being carried, is it anti-racist, anti-bias, anti-ableist, or is it equitable? And so another component that I think is really important are the authors and illustrators. And so who's writing the story for who? Are the authors people of color? Are the authors people with disabilities? A lot of times we see a lot of books that are out there, but they are not written by individuals of color. They're written by white people. And they're telling a story, right, or what life should look like for an individual of color with disability. And so really making sure that you're also checking the authors and those illustrators, and what relation do they have to the story that they're telling? What perspective do they have? Or am I just using characters that look of color in order to sell the book? So the next couple of slides, I picked 4 books that I wanted to share there across different cultures, and just how they are being represented in disability. Some of them are older books and some of them are newer. And so the first one is Yuko Chun and the Daruma Doll. And this book recounts the tale of a blind Japanese girl who, in her village, there was a volcanic eruption. Prior to this volcanic eruption happening, she wasn't allowed in school. So she would sit on the outside of the door, and she would hear the lessons that were happening, hear the songs that were taking place. But when this volcanic eruption happened, the village felt depleted, but she had an idea of the way that she could help her community get back together. And so what it did is that it explored the traditions, right, of how a disability was viewed. It looked at some Japanese culture, but it looked at how the character overcame, you know, how she was viewed in her community through her developing and utilizing this dowel, a craft that she was able to do, and that helped to symbolize, you know, resiliency and her ability to really not only, you know, bring forth an idea, but also turn her community around. And so again, this is a little bit of an older story. The next story that is I looked at was King for a Day. And this story shows that the main character isn't, you know, the highlight of the story. It's a celebration that's happening, a festival that's happening in Pakistan. And the main character, who's in a wheelchair, his siblings are, you know, really thinking about how successful he's going to be in this festival that's happening. And there's a protagonist that is on the ground saying, you know, you can't do it. And of course, through his persistence and just excitement and passion about flying kites, he was able to be, quote unquote, they call it king for the day during this festival. And so it looks at the different power dynamics that an individual with a disability can have when others look down on a disability or feel that they don't have the adequacy to participate in different activities. He wasn't seen in that light. The disability really isn't brought up through his siblings. His siblings are asking if he's gonna help them out, things like that. So he's accepted in his household, but maybe not outside of his household. And so this story really looks at that from that perspective. The next story is Featherless. It's a lingual story, so it's both in Spanish and it's in English. And the father comes home and brings his son a bird who's featherless. And so his father's like, you know, the bird is similar to you, who's different. And the little boy, he's struggling to fit into a new school. And so he really is trying to figure out how he can participate in activities because he's figured the kids don't know him. He is wheelchair bound. And so there's a peer who's like, you can do this. They were playing in a soccer game. And so some of the themes that just come up is that, you know, your interests, right, and your capacity isn't based just on your ability. And so that idea of inclusion, acceptance is provided in the story, being able to overcome whatever adversities you may have regardless of your disability. And then also that power of imagination, of being able to see yourself, right? Being able to be successful in doing things. And his father was trying to present that with the bird as a metaphor, but the young boy didn't quite get it until later in the story. The last story that I want to share, you might have heard of this, is Emmanuel's Dream. It's a story of Emmanuel Fosu Yibu from Ghana. And it was a story about him really moving forward and being able to, again, change that perception of disability, not only in his community and his village, but also throughout his country. And so what he did was he was born with a deformed leg, and it really, when his father wasn't there, but his mother got sick, he really thought about how he can be able to support his family. And so that perseverance, right, of not giving up and letting others know that he could be successful is something that shows through in this story. And so there was a film made about Emmanuel. It was called Emmanuel's Gift, and I have a trailer of that. I just wanted to show you this. And so really thinking about, making sure kids can see beyond maybe where they're at now, and that there's so much more that they have to give to society. So let me see if it'll play. Oh, it didn't play. Of course it doesn't play. Let me see if I can. And so this is just a snippet of it. It's not, of course, the whole movie. Audio. And so the audio is only coming through my laptop. He's handling in the back. Oh, I can use a mic.
What you've done here is an example for these young men and women that the sky is set a goal is to set a goal is an honorable and noble thing to do. To complete a goal is even more noble.
If you're disabled and
Little extras when you want audio. Box one.
following.
He has transformed.
Have you ever dreamed about watching massive glaciers count extra dollars? You'll find our Alaska.
To set a goal is an honorable and noble thing to do. To complete a goal is even more noble.
If you're disabled in Ghana, you are a second-class citizen. Emmanuel's mission. Change perceptions.
Emmanuel, what you've done here is example for these young men and women that the sky is the limit. People in this part of the world believe that when a person is handicapped or disabled, they believe that is a punishment from a deity.
Maybe when I share my story or what I want to do with them, maybe they can say, good. What you are bringing is a very good idea.
The Challenge Athlete Foundation gets grant requests every year. In that grant request, he asked for a bicycle to ride across Ghana and prove a stereotype wrong. Who thinks that way? And it's almost like Forrest Gump, where you see this guy starting running across country and all of a sudden thousands of people are following.
So he has transformed so many people. You see the smiles on the faces, and you can imagine what goes on in their hearts. I believe he's not going to limit his influence to just Ghana. He's going to spread his message to the rest of the world. An incredible athlete who has done extraordinary things.
Handicapped people have lots of talent and lots to offer. So your voice will be an important voice.
Don't say, oh my God, thank God I'm not like him. Say, oh my God, perhaps I could be more like him.
This is the story of Emmanuel Ofosu Yeboah, who had nothing but gave everything and changed a nation forever.
And so giving kids that vision, that opportunity, literature is one way to be able to do that. And so as I conclude, I wanted to share with you just really thinking about, again, what those benefits are of being able to create understanding and empathy among all students, being able to encourage discussions on inclusion and social justice, looking at our literature, and is it mirroring the diverse world that we live in? Are we promoting positive self-image for children with disabilities? We know that there are obstacles that are out there. That lack of books that accurately portray disability is one. The negative portrayal may also have a harmful representation in the literature that we see, stereotypes that are out there. We know that there's lack of training of teachers as well in discussing topics effectively about disability, finding relevant materials, and being authentic in the representation of individuals with disabilities. I wanted to share this QR code. This is the International Board book that's out there, and they have a selection of outstanding books for young people with disabilities across different countries, and they're in those native languages as well. And so this is a resource that you can share with other teachers, other schools, and if you're looking for books that are representation of young children with disabilities that have been vetted, I would say, by this organization. And I think that's just important in the context where we're at to make sure that we have global representation of children with disabilities. So we know that once children see themselves represented in books, their existence is validated and they feel that they're really part of the world, as quoted by Egerton Vasquez. So I thank you for being here today and sharing this time with me.
If there is anybody with any question on her presentation, you are welcome. You can able to put up your hand. Any question? Good. I think that there's no question. and say thank you. Thank you very much. Let us have a round of applause unto her. Thank you so much. I was the session chair, Dr. Joel Okutoi from Mamaseno University in Kenya. Thank you. May you have a nice lunch.
Good afternoon, colleagues. As we prepare to go for lunch, we are honored in our midst. We have a guest who would like to pass some goodwill message, and this is Professor Dickson Adara, the CEO, National Research Fund. I think it's good we hear a goodwill message from him before, as we go for lunch. Professor Dickson Adara, kindly come over for the goodwill message. Let us appreciate Professor Adara. Remember, as we prepare this conference and the output of this conference, we expect to bridge the research gap in the area of special education. So we are honored to have you here, Professor Dickson Adara, and we know that we will partner together in the area of research to support special education. Karibu sana.
Thank you. Allow me, first of all, to recognize our visitors from Canada and across the world. Also, to recognize the government officers present, the Egerton University, Kenya Institute of Special Education, conference participants, stakeholders, and all invited guests. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'll briefly talk about who NRF is. NRF is a National Research Fund, and then I go into the goodwill messages. Then I believe it's lunchtime. I won't be long. So, Kenya, we are privileged to support science, technology, and innovation, and this was through the establishment of the STI Act, that is back in 2013. And the STI Act established 3 key institutions. One of the institutions is NACOSTI. NACOSTI stands for National Commission for Science, Technology, and Innovation. This is the regulator. So if you are to undertake any research in Kenya, you need to get a permit from NACOSTI. The second institution was National Research Fund. As the name states, this is a fund. We mobilize and promote research across all sectors, including special education. We've got the third institution known as Kenya. Kenya is Kenya National Innovation Agency. Now, what Kenya does, it translates or commercializes research outputs to the market. Now, it links our researchers to the private sector, our research output to the private sector, and that's why we are happy to be associated with this gathering. Similarly, through the National Research Fund, we also support conferencing, and of course, when this happens next, I think we should be free to reach out so that we can able to support, and we also support dissemination. Now, back to the conference today. I think the conference is on DISES, which is a Division of Special Education Services, which is based at Egerton University. I'm greatly honored to participate in DISES 2025 Kenya Conference. I'm particularly impressed with the theme of this conference, which is Harambe, and Harambe means coming together. And through this conference, we are building bridges to support inclusive education around the world that emphasize on collaboration in research, including special education. I must say that research in special education has a very huge gap, and as NRF, we've particularly funded KISE, Kenya's Institute of Special Education, with research equipment, and I can see the director is also here. I think he can confirm to that. And we still continue to partner with them on matters research. The National Research Fund encourages action research that aims to solve practical problems while simultaneously generating knowledge. Action research in special education will help to bridge the gap between theory and practice. It has a practical focus and will address specific need, which is special needs in education. I'm aware most of our universities in Kenya here offer bachelors of education in special education from degree level all the way to PhD level. Under special education research, which is grounded in specific contexts where the problem exists, making the findings relevant and applicable. The goal is not only to understand the problems, but also to implement solutions that bring about positive change to our children living with disabilities. The National Research Fund Kenya plays a pivotal role in promoting research, specifically in special education, and we aim to create a robust national research and innovation system that addresses the needs of the society. I may pick an example of a research that we funded at Meru University of Science and Technology, and that research came up with an innovation that enables kids with special needs to be able to utilize computers. And I was delighted by use of your eye, you can be able to move a cursor and be able to interact with the rest of the world using internet and of course using the ICT. We've got various funding mechanisms under NRF. The first funding is competitive funding, and I encourage researchers here in Kenya to look out for calls. And this involves applying for calls that are open to all individuals and institutions in Kenya. And these calls are reviewed and graded in terms of the best among those that have applied gets awarded. And this is usually very, very competitive. We at times only fund up to 10% of the pool of applicants because we have got very many researchers that are interested in getting funded. We encourage them also to seek funding from outside Kenya. We've got matching grants funding, and here NRF collaborates with local and international development partners for joint research in areas of mutual interest. So far, if I pick around, in Canada we work with IDRC, and IDRC has really supported NRF in terms of collaboration. We've got another institution called ACTS, and ACTS also gets funding from IDRC, then it transmits the funding to National Research Fund. We also work with the FCDO, which is a UK agency that supports research in Kenya. So I'll gladly, of course, request you, if you've got specific problems that need funding in special education from Egerton and from this grouping, you can give a proposal of which we can be able to support in terms of several institutions coming together to address a specific problem of special needs. Finally, we've got institutional funding, and in this institutional funding, we usually provide research equipment. The one I've mentioned that we provided to KISE, Kenya Institute of Special Education, and this is also going to be open. Currently, our CS, Minister of Education, is currently in Ghana, working with the European Union on a program called ARISE, and Kenya is going to put roughly 390 million into research. So the future is bright, so I look forward to simultaneously research in special needs also being a recipient or can be able to get a pie of that money that's coming. Finally, it is my hope that this conference has come up with actionable recommendations highlighting research, policy, and complementation of the gaps that we've identified that need interventions. And as NRF and the government of Kenya, we are here to support the research that solves the most neglected sector of our country, which is people living with disabilities, and yet they can make meaningful contributions to our economy. I know recently the president emphasized on the need of reporting, which is called performance target, that reports in terms of inclusion and inclusivity, which is very, very mandatory for all MDS. MDS means ministries, departments, and agencies have to report on how they're involving those people living with disabilities in all their activities in Kenya. With those few remarks, allow me to wish you a good lunch and enjoy the rest of your stay. Those who are still within Kenya, take time to visit our touristic sites. We've got health gates nearby, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Wow, wonderful, wonderful. We appreciate Professor Adala for the goodwill message, for the commitment, and you can see there is a lot of opportunity for supporting research, and we appreciate that commitment. Let us give him a word of applause once again. And colleagues, we are also honored. We have another guest in the house. We have the CEO, UNESCO Kenya. Let us appreciate James Geshia, the CEO, UNESCO Kenya. Kindly come over to give a goodwill message. This conference is looking at partnership and collaboration. And these are the partners and the collaborators. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Daktari and the MC. Hamjambo. I know we have people from outside the country who might not understand Kiswahili, but those are greetings in Kiswahili. As mentioned, my name is James Geshia Njogu, the acting CEO, Kenya National Commission for UNESCO. We are 199 commissions for UNESCO globally, and there is 194 member states to UNESCO. The National Commission for UNESCO globally implements UNESCO programs. There are 5 programs. One of it is education, natural science, social and human sciences, culture, and communication and information. The activity we are holding today is much about education because it is the special education. And therefore it falls under the 5th program. Of course, we are also talking about partnerships, and we are excited to be in partnership with the Egerton University. And Egerton University has been a host of UNESCO chair in bioethics and regional center for documentation and research on bioethics. In Kenya, we have currently 14 UNESCO chairs, and I think we are second to South Africa because South Africa has 16. So for me, it's a great privilege to be invited to these very wonderful events. A vital conference on special need education. And I'm really touched when we talk about special need. And one of the reasons we work closely with the Kenya Institute of Special Education, we are great partners. We have experiences with people with special needs. And in fact, I want to give a short example that yesterday alone, my office administrator, a principal office administrator, requested for permission to take her child who is of special needs. He's a boy, he's blind, that's number one, and also you call it what? Altruistic, something like that. But this boy plays guitar and has also attended the various schooling. So this is something we are connecting with. Okay. So the theme of the conference being Harambee, building bridges to support inclusive education around the world, is very key. Let no one be left behind. We also say that under UNESCO. And for us, very much, education is for peace, sustainable development, and intellectual collaboration. So what we are saying here, this theme comes at the right time in context of our Kenyan Vision 2030 and the African Agenda 2063. So allow me also to express my deepest appreciation and gratitude to the organizers, here including the relationship or partnership between Kenya Institute of Special Education, KISE, and the greatest partner here, the Division of International Special Education and Services. And I think before I leave here, I would want to see who is in that, because we would also want to be partners, so that we can talk and also express what we do as National Commission and what you do, because I'm sure we have a meeting ground. So for Egerton University and KISE, we are not taking away your partners. We are just joining in this big network that you have already created. And we are very much pleased with what you do, Dr. So we also appreciate very much Egerton University in supporting inclusive education. I have had the opportunity to teach in Egerton University, one of the parallel programs, those old days in sociology, and that was on security, and it was a good experience insofar. So thank you very much, and thank you also for those who are attending. And ladies and gentlemen, in Kenya and indeed across the globe, the pursuit of inclusive education is not merely a story for us to talk about. This is very useful. Our experience globally is that try to deal with an unschooled person. Who will have more problem? Is it the schooled or the unschooled? It is actually the unschooled. So we need to be at equal pass with everyone for us to be able to communicate, interact, network, and make economies thrive. Whoever is left behind leaves you behind. We normally say a caravan moves at a speed of the slowest. Who would finish that? Okay, but you know it anyway. So ladies and gentlemen, this is part of the fundamental human rights. Education for all. It is the cornerstone for sustainable development, and as I mentioned earlier, it is also part of the intellectual collaboration. It is about recognizing the inherent dignity and the potentials of every individual, regardless of their abilities and challenges. And some of these challenges are actually abilities. So in ensuring that education system is designed to nurture the potential for all, we believe that the true progress can only be achieved when no one is left behind. And no one is left behind. So, ladies and gentlemen, this conference to me, and I believe to you, serves as a crucial platform for dialogue, for collaboration, and sharing the best practice which you have already been sharing, and we are continuing to share, and also to network. So the presence of such a diverse group of experts, practitioners, policymakers, we have students, the advocates from across the world, is a testimony of our collective commitment to the noble cause. For sure, because I'm not standing between you and your lunch, I'm quite happy that lunch is being served and some are already enjoying. So as I speak, keep enjoying your meal, and those who are yet to get their meal, I am sure it's out there. So we are here to learn from each other, to challenge the existing paradigms, because we truly want to change, because change is all the time. Change is continuous. So we are here for this paradigm shift and to forge a stronger partnership that will translate our aspiration into tangible realities for learners with the special needs, which means therefore we should also provide that special education to meet the special need. The journey toward fully inclusive education, you'll all agree with me that it is multifaceted. I might not even mention all the facets that we may wish to include. And it is certainly complex. Sometimes we say today we are living in the world of VUCA. For those who know the abbreviation of VUCA, the volatility and certainty, among others. So we need those stronger partnerships that will translate into our aspiration into tangible realities for learners with special needs. And the journey towards the fully inclusive education requires to be properly positioned, and therefore we are having this conversation. It requires all of us to come together to mold innovative solutions, and I am sure out of this meeting we will come with a report that captures some of our recommendations. And for this reason, let me highlight just a few recommendations that I think are very key. Wherever you come from, whichever country you come from, whichever corner of Kenya you come from, it is very important, number one, the adoption of robust legal policy framework that enshrines the rights of learners with special needs and guide the implementation of inclusive practices. That is one key thing. We must put right institutions in form of legal and policy framework so that then their needs, or their special needs, are properly addressed. Of course, with this, continuous review and strengthening of the existing policy is necessary to ensure that they are translated effectively into the actual practices on the ground. And this is what we are talking about, the National Commission and its goodwill. Our goodwill is to advise. Our goodwill is to join hands with you and with everyone to ensure that we attain the goal of reaching everybody. So, number two is about training and capacity building of our educators, who are at the forefront of this transformation, to equip them with the necessary skills, knowledge, and inclusive pedagogies. We also think about the various equipment needed. So again, this is very critical when we have new equipment to be used by different abilities, and even innovate the different equipment or instrument for either for training. Number three, continuous awareness creation among actors in education to ensure that all aspects of the sector is maintained, will enhance the special need lens, what we see and what we want to see and what we want to achieve. Continuous awareness is very critical. For Kenya, we are pleased that within the national performance contracting agreements, we capture a component of dealing with persons or persons with special needs. For the provision of adaptable and accessible learning environment, both physical and intellectually, encompassing essential infrastructure, appropriate learning material, and integration of technology. You'll all agree with me that technology is changing very fast, and this is why we are talking about an environment that is uncertain, an environment that is vulnerable. we must also embrace technology, AI, among others, in handling and ensuring that we deliver the special need education for those with the special needs. The other point is about identifying and addressing special needs early in a child's life, which can significantly impact a child's development trajectory. Once it is identified early, this is more useful because we are able to lay the right foundation from the word go. So that awareness I mentioned earlier is very critical, because we know in some cultures where children with special needs are actually, when they are born, they are hidden, they are kept away from the other members of the society, and they are not exposed, leave alone to education, even to some of the social amenities that are necessary and actually a human right to everyone. So again, another point is about active involvement of parents, families, communities in order to create supportive ecosystem for learning and not stigmatization. This is very key, and it goes hand in hand with awareness creation. The other point is perhaps continuous research and innovation to understand the evolving landscape of the special need education, identifying emerging challenges, develop evidence-based interventions, and research into technologies, among others. These are my few points that I deliver during this session of goodwill address. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, the National Commission for UNESCO, through the various education program, is dedicated in advancing inclusive and quality education. Our efforts are aligned with Sustainable Development Goal number 4, which calls for inclusive and equitable quality education and lifelong learning opportunities for all. Please, as you eat, underline the word for all. Now, as I end, let me end. Thank you very much for the clap. But it is for really all, and we shall all eat. We are committed to the advancement of policies to promote diversity, address discrimination, ensure education systems are responsive to the needs of all learners. And as I conclude, I want to repeat that building bridges to support inclusive education around the world is not merely a theme for this conference. To me, it is a call for action. Building bridges to support inclusive education around the world is not merely a theme for this conference. It is a call for action. It is an invitation for all of us, as individuals, as institutions where we work, to recommit ourselves to the vision of a world where every learner, irrespective of their abilities, has the opportunity to flourish. Everybody wants to flourish. Let us leverage the insight gained from this conference. Let us strengthen our partnerships and work tirelessly to dismantle barriers and build bridges, truly inclusive education system, one bridge at a time. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy your meal. I can see, guys, you're happy. Na chakula kwa Kiswahili ni tamu. Thank you, Daktari.
Thank you so much. CEO, National Commission for UNESCO. We really appreciate your commitment, the goodwill. We see there is a lot of opportunity. Those who are scholars, we see the opportunity of partnership, and we really appreciate this. Thank you so much. Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. We appreciate our guests, and among us we also have a representative from the National Council for Persons with Disability, Mr. Titus Yego, will talk to us shortly after this. But I would like now to call upon, as we take our lunch, I know we are taking our lunch and we are taking it here. We have an interlude of entertainment from Egerton University. So the presenters kindly come over so that as people take lunch, we proceed with our entertainment. Then we will have the goodwill message from the National Council for Persons with Disability. Karibu sana.
Hello everyone. My name is Charity Wamboi from Egerton University. I will be performing a poem titled The Silent Thunder. It is a representative of someone who is speaking up and being heard in silence. Thank you. I walk through halls where sound doesn't follow me. When the world hums a tune, I was never taught how to sing. But don't confuse my silence for surrender. This is a battle I've been fighting, a battle I've been winning. I am a student, a soul stitched with sign language, etched in silence. Where the world speaks in language, I speak with my hands. Yes, I struggle, not with learning, but with being seen as someone who can. See, education is a maze with walls too high for those who cannot be heard. But then came hands from the corners of kindness. Organizations with hearts loud enough to shatter my silence. Government grants, a stepping stone where stumbling felt endless. But I still struggle because the world is loud and unforgiving sometimes. But I've got hands that sign and pray and build and break limits. I've got eyes that read lips and books, and the hearts of those who refuse to give up on me. I've got purpose. I've got purpose that keeps me going. So I do not need to hear to be heard. I do not need to hear to be understood. I do not need to hear to understand. So when I walk on that stage, diploma in hand, future unfolding like open palms, know that I did not just arrive. I climbed. With support from those who supported me. A tutor who learned my name in the language of my soul. An interpreter who painted words like sunrise on a blank sky. With support beneath me, like wind beneath a kite. With love from those who showed me love. I stood. I am not broken, I am becoming. I am the voice in the silence, the loudest hope you'll ever meet. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Egerton University. the silent voices that DISES is waking up. Thank you so much. Lydia? Wange dance. Now, thank you so much, Egerton University, reminding us that all of us are able differently. We are all well gifted and we are the future. And as we continue to enjoy our lunch, we are remembering all the great lessons we are getting from each of the rooms. And just to finalize this session, I'm going to welcome the chairperson, Disability Kenya, to also make his remarks. But DISES, as we prepare, after this short talk, we are going to have the person in charge of excursions to guide us so that immediately after your lunch, the various groups can set off. As I sit down, and the reason why we allowed UNESCO in the room, the Ministry of Education, Professor Adala Research to come here and talk to us is because the kind of conversation you have brought to Kenya is not something we want to die. Those are our key stakeholders that we are expecting when diocese guests you are leaving. A small diocese has been born in Kenya. And that is what our conversation has been, that now we want to build on the new diocese in Kenya to learn from the great leadership we have seen in the various teams. So allow me to welcome our guest to speak to us.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Yes. I'm Titus Yego from the National Council for Persons with Disability. I am here today because of the invitation through Egerton University, and I'm here again to represent our Executive Director, Madam Ivan Joroge, and also to represent our chairperson for National Council for Persons with Disability, Madam Elizabeth Chesang. We have the following to say as National Council for Persons with Disability, that National Council for Persons with Disability I've said that I work with National Council for Persons with Disability, Nairobi, at the headquarters. And National Council for Persons with Disability is a state corporation established by the government to provide, to oversee rights of persons with disability and rehabilitation of persons with disability to enable them access opportunities in our country. What we do, number one, our institution is mandated to register persons with disability. So we do registration and issue certificates to persons with disability. So the process of registration involves multi-agency. We have medical personnel ascertaining your disability. After ascertaining your disability, and proving that you are a person with disability, then we register you and we give you a disability certificate. That is what we do. Number two, we mainstream, we provide mainstreaming advisory to MDAs and to government agencies and private agencies. So we give advisory to MDAs to implement policies which are disability friendly. And we do that one through influence of a performance contract. We ensure that performance contract has got a disability component. Also what we do, we provide assistive devices like wheelchairs, like crutches, braille machines, and any other technology adapted for persons with disability. So we issue assistive devices to persons with disability. The other thing that we do, we offer cash transfer, monthly stipends, to persons with severe disability. When we say severe, are those ones who cannot do anything for themselves. So we give them monthly stipend of 2,000 every month for those persons who have a severe disability. Something else that we do, we provide educational assistance to needy persons with disability. And that is the department which I head. We provide education assistance to persons with disability in form of scholarship. So we provide scholarship to students right away from primary school all the way up to university. So these students are identified from the counties. The county officer, together with the team, the county vetting team, submit to us the names of needy students. Then we support them in terms of scholarship from primary all the way up to university. We don't provide scholarship to those ones who are pursuing masters. So we provide up to basic degree. The other thing that we do what we call as accessibility audit. We normally do accessibility audit to build infrastructure and give recommendation to institutions to ensure that the built environment is disability friendly. And the other thing that we do, we also have a job placement portal so that those trainees who have completed their education and seeking for employment, we do job placement. So we have a portal, and you can visit our website so that you can check the link of that portal so that those PWDs who have completed their training can be able to access employment, can be able to be linked to employment opportunities. Because we realize that the greatest challenge, barrier, that is affecting persons with disabilities, access to employment opportunities. They are being discriminated because of the nature of the disabilities that they have. Most of the industries, most of the employers might not employ them because of the nature of disabilities that they have. We have persons with cerebral palsy. So when an employer gets an encounter, an interview, a person with cerebral palsy, for example, or somebody with bipolar, you see discrimination can begin from there. So we have the job placement portal. We also provide tools of trade to trainees with skills. So we provide tools of trade, and tools of trade here can be in form of a toolkit to start off their self-employment, to start off their business. So we give or we issue free of charge toolkit to an applicant who has expressed an interest, and we provide them with startup capital to start up their business. So we issue toolkit. At the same time, we give them startup capital. And lastly, we facilitate the processes of tax exemption for persons with disabilities. So if you have a disability, you can apply to the council. You will be waived or be exempted totally from paying the taxes in terms of income tax, or any other levy, including even the levy that you can be charged when you are importing a motor vehicle. So you can apply to the council and you will be exempted. You will not be paying the taxes so long as you have registered and apply. And apply to the council to completely waive you. So we have two types of exemption. Number one, you will be tax exempted from the income that you are earning. At the same time, you can be exempted upon application if you have imported a car and you want a duty-free motor vehicle, then you can be exempted. And finally, we also have LPO financing. So for those persons with disabilities who own business, registered business, we provide you with a finance. We have some funds to facilitate you to do your business, especially when you have an LPO for supply or to do a business. We provide you with a small token. Council, we want to appreciate partners, especially partners who have come to join us, because currently we have a new act that was signed by the President this year. We have Persons with Disabilities Act 2025 that is now operational. And most of the sections require stakeholders to come together with the purpose of implementing that act fully, because it has got a lot of goodies for persons with disability and even the caregivers who have children with severe disability. The act is saying that if you have a child with severe disability, you will be exempted from paying the taxes. Also, the act is providing for those tax waiver for those institutions taking care and even providing services for persons with disability. So if we have such organizations, then they can request the council to be waived, and also the parent. We are still developing regulations to see how we can waive parents who have children with severe disability, because children with severe disability requires 24-hour care, and they also need to enjoy the issues of tax exemption. So we are very grateful. Egerton University, I'm one of the students there. I'm doing masters at Egerton, Master of Education, Curriculum Development. And okay, I've taken time to graduate, but I think I have interest with Egerton University. So we are happy as an organization, the National Council for Persons with Disability. We are honored for your invite and what you do for persons with disability. Egerton is one of the universities which is disability friendly. I've been there severally, and we must commend or give you credit where you deserve. I've seen the infrastructure is disability friendly, and we recognize those efforts, because if all the institutions will be putting efforts, small efforts, then we shall have a very beautiful country where we shall have everyone enjoying services that is provided by the government. Personally, you know, I have hearing aids. This is not microphones. It's not, these are hearing aids. I also have a hearing problem besides the physical disability. And you see, when I visit these offices, I'm being told, why can't you put off the telephone microphones? These ones here. And actually, these ones are hearing aid. So, I think, thank you so much. Enjoy your lunch. And also reach us always so that we can help you when it comes to disability mainstreaming. Thank you so much.
Wow, just hold on. We'd like to appreciate our guests who have given us very insightful statement and on experience. Our brother here, Titus Diego, representing the Council for Persons with Disability. Rebecca would like to represent a gift for him.
Yes, on behalf of DISES, we want to thank you for coming and sharing with us, and we have the official DISES Kikoi for you. And we do appreciate the fact that we have been able to bring together research, international folks, and the policymakers and everyone. It's a really beautiful thing, so thank you for being part of our conference. Yes.
Our brother James Geshia, the CEO, National Commission for UNESCO, Kenya. Kindly come over. We'd like to appreciate you. You have given us very good, insightful message, challenging us and even guiding us on how we can bridge the gap. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We really appreciate the partnership. From here, we are going to have partnership between DISES, KISE, already they have a partnership, and Egerton University in bridging the gap. This conference is practical oriented. Thank you. Professor Dixon Adara, CEO, National Research Fund. He has given us hints on how to get funds to undertake action-based research. Here come over, Prof. Action research to solve problems in the society. Asante sana. Yeah, let us take advantage of that goodwill and the partnership. We are honored by your presence. Thank you, Professor.
And I would also like to call up our performers who came and shared their skills and their talents. So if you could please come up, I have a small gift for you. Didn't they do a fantastic job? Thank you so much. Right, thank you. Is there one more? So I know that a lot of you are wondering about the excursions. We said 1:30 we would finish lunch, so hopefully everyone is well fed. The excursions and the buses will be up at the front. If you're going on Crescent Island with me, then you'll also meet up at the front because you've got to get your life vest. So we'll be meeting there promptly at 2 o'clock. All right? Okay. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate all of the hard work and presentations and kindness and engagement that I've seen today. You all are fantastic, so thank you.